back with another one. The most
Coaches
frequent
chat video.
The most frequent YouTube uploaders in the game.
Yeah, with
Videos every
Pretty solid
so
that.
often.
But there are some exciting stuff. We've got the website coming out soon, and you'll be seeing some results from quite a lot of the clients we've been working with and stuff like that. So it's not that we're being lazy, it's just other things have been prioritised really.
Yeah.
So what are we chatting about today?
We are doing a follow-up video and using these coaches chat videos or format to address some of the less serious videos we put up on the Instagram calls.
And actually chatting about it sort of in depth and what sort of covering why we're posting those stupid videos.
Yeah.
And hopefully making people more aware of the things that we want to talk about, right?
Yeah, because I think it's just knowing what each platform's best for. So I think we're trying to do too much heavy content on Instagram.
Yeah.
And try and provide too much
info
in one post. So we're gonna stick with the light-hearted stuff for Instagram. Draw some people in and use this as more of a platform for the people that actually want to know
the stuff. You can head to YouTube
and follow us.
Get all the brain candy on here.
That's it. Well, hopefully you find these a little bit helpful. If you do, whack the old comment below.
The comment, subscribe, like, all that stuff.
And if you put a negative comment, I will delete it straight away. So
no, we won't. We'll just completely tear you shreds.
Anyway, today is following on, like you said, about the form video.
Here we go.
About
Get the ball rolling.
About the terrible form technique and all that in the last video where we demonstrated some top-notch technique.
The professional technique for if you want to be a bro.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So we're going to try and cover a bunch of stuff. The format and the idea of these videos isn't for it to be super structured.
No, we're just literally just going to chat about how we would usually... So this is how these videos came about, is we would notice that when we get together, we like chat about training and we're like, oh man, that's 3 hours gone and we're chatting about training so much. It's like, this is the stuff when we're chatting about training, when we meet up to train, when we're at the pub and stuff like that. That's the stuff that actually needs to be filmed and put on camera so other people know about it.
So
but anyway,
they're longer, but they cover a lot of stuff.
So
this is all about form.
Yeah, technique. So
why we need
first point as to why you should train with good form.
I mean, that's the hot question of why we're doing this whole video. Is like, why should you train with good technique?
Why should you make that a priority?
And why is training with suboptimal form not a good idea? Crack us on with that first one.
I would say consistency, right? So if you like you said, why you should focus on it, right? If you don't focus on form or want to learn how to use good form, you're not going to be consistent in what you're doing. So the way I look at this is I see people deadlifting in the gym a lot, and almost within one set of deadlifts, this is just an example, guys, they will do 3 different types of that lift. So the first one will be completely hip dominant, and then the next time they'll just do a squat holding the bar in front of them, and it's a different exercise every time. Even though it's a deadlift, it's not a deadlift, it's done really bad form, but there's no way of progressing that because you're not doing the same thing every time, right? That is poor form. And that's probably quite an extreme example, but that's basically why you should really focus on your form. Come up with I call it like systems. Come up with a system in your head of what you're doing when you're doing that exercise, so that you do it the same way every time, so then you can progress it over time, right?
So that one leads on to the whole element of how do you know if you've actually progressed or not. And I think what that highlights for me, and the biggest issue with that for me, is if you take the deadlift, or let's say a different exercise that has a better example of this. If we said a bent over row or a bicep curl, something that has a bit of momentum going into it, because the deadlift starts at the bottom, it's harder to do, or a squat, anything, okay. If, let's take that squat, let's say you did 100 kilos for 6 reps on week 1.
Yeah.
And then in week 2, you try and do 105 kilos for the same 6 reps. But or if you've tried to jump up too much, if you've gone like 120 now. But what you do is you cut your range of motion off, like a crazy amount, you think that you've got stronger, but you haven't got stronger. You've changed the exercise in a favourable way to mean that a higher load can be used. You haven't seen progression of the strength. Whereas if you keep the form solid from week 1 to week 2 and from week 2 to week 12, you know if you see any PRs in those lifts, it's coming from an increase in strength and muscle size, which is the goal.
I would look at that is when that sort of stuff happens, you haven't earned the right to progress. Like trying to jump up too soon, like you just said, a ridiculous jump in weight, you haven't earned the right to do that yet. You need to knuckle down, focus on your form, really think about it and gradually build up, progressively overload yourself rather than taking those ridiculous jumps, because you haven't earned the right to get that strong yet for that given movement.
You haven't even got that strong. You've changed the technique.
To, it's a different exercise.
There's theoretically, there's more weight on the bar, but you haven't got stronger. All you've got is stupider by changing the technique. You haven't achieved anything.
Like in the pro video.
You haven't achieved
that, Phil.
Oh, so easy. Hit PBs all day long.
I think I hit my 1 rep max bench for about 13 reps doing just an elbow bend, or shoulder shrug, whatever that was. That's like the difference is, your I guess that could lead us on to the performance, really, like, and goals and stuff.
But you just sort of, they're very much intertwined, all of these things. We'll try and do it like categories, but if we feel like we need to come back, the other thing as well for these, if I start writing notes down, or if he starts writing notes down, it's because we don't want to forget what's going on. If we come up for a point.
Or so that we don't want to interrupt each other whilst we're rambling on.
It'll probably happen anyway. But we'll try our best not to. But that consistency thing is a big one. It's just you need to know that you've got the standardised thing. When you talk about the principles of like strength training or any resistance training thing or any training anyway, like volume, intensity, frequency, all of that stuff is expressed through movement and through the exercises. So you need to have a standardized thing to make sure it's expressed the same every time. Because otherwise you don't know whether your increases in volume are coming from what you're trying to achieve, which would be primarily the size and strength, or if it's just come from a different technique thing. So you need to make sure that form's on point, so the consistency element is nailed, so you know that the progression's coming from
building strength,
what you want, versus your goal. Anything else. So I would then, let's link this on to performance and why form is so vital for performance.
So I guess the first thing is, if you're strength training, having good form literally means that you will get stronger in the long run. You produce the most force, you can lift the most weight with good form. That is literally why technique has been evolved for these exercises, or come about, whatever that word is for this, for you to be able to lift the most amount of weight possible. If you have a shoddy squat, you are not going to get strong at the squat in the long run. You might be able to squat badly with a relatively heavy amount of weight, but you're not going to progress that. You're just going to be banging your head against the wall for ages, and you're probably going to get injured, but we'll touch on that later on. In order to get the strongest you can possibly be in the long run, you need to have good form, because you produce the most amount of force.
So a power lifter or a strength athlete like that, so an ollie lifter or a power lifter, that so much of it comes down to technique. You need to be so technically proficient in your lift. If you can have all the size, but if you're not expressing that size through good technique, you're going to be shit. So you need to have that mastered to do that. So you need to have that for performance. So that's literally tied in perfectly. If your goal's hypertrophy, you don't need to have to be as technically proficient at each lift, but you still need to be able to do it well enough to deliver the tension to the right muscles that you want, and to actually use enough weight to actually overload everything. And also, if your goal's hypertrophy, you need good form to execute the full range of motion that you have available, because the goal full range of motion training is linked with hypertrophy stimulus. So you need to make sure that you have the technique and the form from the point of view of utilizing those muscles and muscle groups efficiently. So it's maybe not so technically proficient to generate the most weight on the bar, but actually to make sure that you're lifting it properly. So
to overload.
If you do a squat for the primary desire of quad growth, you need to be making sure that you hit a full range of motion squat to have that outcome. So if you're doing little partial reps of squats, you're not going to have as good results as if you were to hit full range of motion. And that's full depth that you have available. And I think we'll come on to that potentially in this safety area.
Yeah.
But that's a big point.
But also, like you said earlier, you could apply this example to quite a few exercises. But the bent over row example, if you want back hypertrophy, what is the goal of doing a bent over row? Is back hypertrophy. Yeah. If you were using your hips and the momentum to row that bar up, you're not going to get as much hypertrophy as you could, right? In the jokey video, I was doing bicep curls, but pretty much hip thrusting, right? I wasn't really using my biceps for that. Like, that's obviously extreme examples.
But it's not extreme because that's what people do.
Yeah, this is true.
It's not extreme at all because this is literally what people do.
But you've got to think, what is the goal of this exercise? Like you said with the squats, right?
Yeah.
The goal is quad hypertrophy, so why would I do partial reps when I'm going to get optimal hypertrophy from doing full range of motion squats?
And I think this is literally like, you saying that there, this is why I like these formats, this is good, because it sparks the brain a little bit. If you were to say, for any exercise, whatever your goal is, when you're doing the exercise, you're doing that exercise for a damn reason. You're not just, if you should anyway, if you're choosing the exercise...
it's just clocking in.
Just randomly, and you've got something wrong already. But you should have a goal of the exercise. Yeah, that's it. So you've got to ask yourself, what is the desired goal of this exercise? So let's take two different examples. Okay, so the squat we'll stick with. We'll use some different examples as we go through this, but... Right, if you're a powerlifter, the squat is, I need to make sure that I'm as technically proficient in this lift as possible. I'm using this lift to potentially generate hypertrophy, yada yada. So for that, your goal is to use proper form because you need to be as technically proficient as you can. If your goal is, right, I'm using this squat to generate as much hypertrophy as I can, you need to make sure you're using that lift for the desired goal. If you're doing the lift and you're sacrificing those things, you're sacrificing that goal. Yeah, the goal. So if the goal is maximal hypertrophy and you need to hit full range of motion and you're stopping, you're no longer hitting your goal for that exercise. It's now become a goal of how much weight can I put on the bar? And if the goal is how much weight can I put on the bar, then why don't you just grab every plate available in the gym, load the bar up, and just have a nice little picture with it? Or just don't even unrack it. Literally just load it up.
Take a picture on the bar.
Yeah, because the goal is no longer how can I lift this properly? How strong am I through the full range?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The goal is you're putting more weight on and you're stopping the range of motion. So why not stop the range of motion even further by just not doing the exercise?
Not doing it at all.
Load the bar up and then just stand underneath it.
Yeah,
that's not the goal anymore. So
that makes sense.
It drives me mad. So the bent over row is a big one. So it's like you said, what's the goal of the bent over row? Back development. So back development. So what should be lifting the bar? The back and all the assistant muscle groups. So when you do it, it should be a strict bent over row. If you start turning up and look like you're friggin' rocking around like crazy like I did in the video, you're basically, when you start getting to too heavy of a weight, it's like, right, so your weight has increased past the point that the back can actually strong enough to lift. Yeah. So the back is no longer strong enough to lift that. That means that you shouldn't be doing any more. Anything past that is no longer the back doing the work, it's the hip musculature, it's everything else, the momentum helping accelerate it through the lift. So it's like a bit of a dent to people's ego, but at the same time it shouldn't, because in bodybuilding, if you're doing it for bodybuilding, your ego, or what you should be priding yourself on, is your appearance and your physique. Yeah. So you want the best development for that. You're not a strength athlete. You shouldn't worry about how much weight on the bar.
Be focusing on volume anyway. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily. There's so many different variables to manipulate.
Yeah. And if you're a strength athlete, then yes, your goal is to lift as much as you can. But then you've got your standardized, hitting parallel, hips past that, deadlift, making sure the bars.
If you're a powerlifter, you're going to have a judge watching you. See, if you have bad technique, you will literally get no reps and fail. You will fail. Yeah. So it is a pass-fail scenario for a powerlifter as to having good technique. So
and relating it back to asking what's the goal of this exercise. If you're doing with bad technique, what is your justification for why you're doing it?
Why have you
is
got
it
bad technique?
I've got to use partials for this? Why am I like all the active range of motion stuff, or like whatever it is? There is no justification for cheap repping. Or doing stuff like that. The only excuse really is you want to lift as much as you can.
As much as you can.
And like I said, so why not just whack as many plates as you can on the bar, stand near it. Lots of people will be looking at you being like, whoa, he's lifted, like he's got loads of weight on that bar. Don't worry, you never have to lift it, you just have to have people watch it. Because that's all that's important, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Gym selfies. You really got to leave your ego at the door. What?
Yeah. I think we're using compound ones, but it's the same for anything, like a bicep curl. Your target muscle is a bicep, so why are you, like you said...
If I was at that hip thrust in that bar, I literally, the biggest waste of time going. Like, when I use smaller weights and don't use momentum, that is what gives you bicep hypertrophy. Like,
it's doing what is actually properly working to
the goal of the exercise.
So it might be lighter weight, but it's what is actually appropriate for the bicep to lift. It's not what's appropriate for you to
hips.
Chuck on the bar and see what you can lift. It's what's appropriate for that muscle group. And hey, look,
it's like tricep extensions when people are pulling it down like this, like whipping their hands up and down.
Side note, I actually was in a commercial gym before, and one of the PTs in there said to their clients that this is a tricep extension. The goal is literally just to get the handle down however you need to.
The goal is to get the handle down
sit on top of the handle, just jump on it.
Just jump on it, rear naked, choke the handle down to the floor.
Which is ridiculous.
Oh my God.
What was I going to say? I was going to say something off there. Shit.
Oh, that's why we're on paper.
I was going to interrupt you though.
Talking about gym scenarios, right?
What were you saying before that? That's what I was going to say. Is right, if your ego is dented because you can't lift enough for your bicep. So if let's say you have to drop a ton of weight to actually use your bicep. Hate to tell you, that's just because you haven't been training your biceps properly for a while. It's been your hips doing it, which is why your biceps suck at frigging lifting the weight.
It's probably also why you haven't got big biceps.
Yeah, but that's why you should be dropping the weight because that's how much load the biceps can actually lift.
But Eddie Hall bicep curls this, so that's what I should be aiming for. You're not Eddie Hall. You're not Eddie Hall. Literally the most frustrating thing ever, copying like elite athletes. But Usain Bolt does this. They've been training since they were teenagers. Stop trying to imitate them. You're not them. You have a normal job, or you have stress, you have a family, you have kids, you don't get paid to do it. Stop trying to copy them. Oh man, that stuff makes me so frustrated. Literally. So this gym example is this is literally someone trying to copy Eddie Hall. It's like a 15-year-old kid. He deadlifted 160 kilograms. Woo, well done. That was really impressive. But he literally had the worst deadlift form I think I've ever seen in my life. He was rolling the bar back and forth, screaming for a while. I saw this in a gym, and then picked it up off the ground. And it's impressive to be able to do. He's a big kid, but at the same time, he is not going to get anywhere. And I said, do you want any help on your deadlift technique? And he's like, no, I've got it down. I deadlift like Eddie Hall. And I'm like, you're a 15-year-old child, and you have crappy deadlift technique. How long do you think Eddie Hall has been deadlifting for? He's earned the right to deadlift. He's strong as hell.
To be 60 and see how well he's...
Oh yeah, exactly. See how he feels. Well, he literally got told by doctors, like, if you carry on like this, you're going to die. So... for that kid to be copying him, like, yes, cool, you lifted that weight off the floor, but like you said earlier, like, why are you doing that? What are you testing for? It wasn't a powerlifting competition. It wasn't a strongman competition. He literally walked into the gym and wanted to put as many plates on the bar as he could and lift it. What did he get out of it other than he picked that up with crappy technique? He's not going to get anywhere with that. He's not going to, longevity-wise.
People that do that as well, I bet he'll be hitting that same weight for
he literally has. So this was quite a while ago. Literally, pretty much, we've done another video they'll be releasing. Literally goes to the gym and does that pretty much month on month. Like, 1 rep max to 160 kilos. No. Why are you testing? You're not you're not training for a competition, you haven't increased weight, so it's not, you're just repeating that 1 rep max, which you're not getting anything out of, other than boosting your ego. Frustrates me so much.
Something else that's just popped up now as well, that's kind of tying in with performance and consistency, is when you've got an exercise that has some sort of external goal. So what I mean by that is or an external focus of, because obviously when you're lifting the bar, if you're doing like a bench press, the bar has to touch the chest, or lat pull down, the bar has to get down. And when you've got like the viewpoint of, I'm not going to get into the debate of internal versus external focus. External focus is definitely a good thing to have when you're focusing on just lifting the weight. But when people sacrifice form just to get the bar to the chest, or just to get the weight up, so the bicep curl, a lot of times what I'll see is people will do a bicep curl to the top, and then as they come down, they won't hit full extension. They'll stop with it flexed, but then they'll let the arm drop back, and it's but the weight's gone down all the way, and now it's coming back up. But you actually haven't done it. How have you executed that range of motion of the weight? So it's range of motion of the weight, so the full bar path of how much the bar travels, but how are you doing that? So if the goal of the bicep curl is to use the bicep through the full range of motion, cool, the dumbbells move from the top to the bottom still, but the bicep hasn't moved the full range of motion. So when you're looking at exercise and how you execute it, if it has like an external goal like that, it's kind of thinking, right, but how is it getting from A to B? And that's more of a hypertrophy thing.
Sorry, were you video?
Yeah, so essentially you're just wanting to make sure that you just use the right range of motion for the thing, and that's primarily for bodybuilders and hypertrophy. So strength athletes, you obviously the bar path is a big thing, or hitting depth is right, but it's a little bit more bodybuilder-ish focus for that thing.
Well, you need to hit the range of motion that the guidelines for the judges for that federation would set you, right? Should we move on to safety next?
Yeah, let's do safety and injury stuff.
So, another reason, and we touched on this a little bit, like we said at the start, that all these points sort of intertwine, is lifting with good form will, in the long run, make you stronger and better, because you're less likely to get injured as well along the way. So someone squatting with a shoddy squat, they might try and build on that, but what's going to happen is, down the line somewhere, they're far more likely to get injured than someone lifting with optimal form.
Yeah, that's a big old point, the fact that, right now you're not injured.
Yeah.
That's what, it's
but I'm fine now.
Nothing like this at the minute. It's now you are.
Yeah. It's like that kid I said, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was fine. I'm totally great. Okay, well, cool. When you're getting surgery and stuff down the line, come back and see me.
And I would like to highlight, so when we come at the form tech side of things, the reason we start with performance is because that's the biggest thing. We don't want to nocebo someone into it. We're not going to be
absolutely not.
If someone's got a bit of a back bend, we're not going to be like, oh my god, don't bend your back because it's going to snap in your deadlift.
No.
We don't hit it from that point of view.
No.
We're not coming at it from that side. What we are highlighting is, over time, if you're using suboptimal technique with excessive weight, which we definitely don't encourage, you should be learning how to do it properly first, but that is going to lead to an increased injury risk over time.
Exactly. It comes back to what the goal is, right? So, like you said, we don't want to nocebo someone into saying don't deadlift with a back bend, that's cool, but if that person's goal is to get as strong as possible, then we're going to try to teach them optimal technique because that's their goal, right?
Yeah.
It's not noceboing them saying, well, that's going to hurt your back.
Yeah.
It's just down the line somewhere, we want you to reach your goal.
Yeah, and something else which is an interesting thing is theoretically there is no such thing as good or bad technique. There is just kind of,
it's more of a range
and worse. It's like a spectrum, because it's not suddenly if you go out of position, that's it, you've got bad technique and it's off for injury risk. It's kind of like each position and each tissue has a certain tolerance to the load. So if you put yourself in a suboptimal position, that is an increased risk of going above that tissue's tolerance to X amount of weight, which could lead to an injury. So it's kind of a spectrum. It's not like one magic technique you have to hit. It's kind of a big old spectrum. But it's just we want to be more to that safer end of things. So people will have slightly suboptimal technique, but it's...
And there's so many things that come into that, like anatomically, things like that, like you said earlier, using your full range of motion, right?
Oh yeah, so that ties in massively. The other thing, well, let me write that down so I don't forget, but were you going to continue that? Or?
Yeah, so literally, so just using, for you... Huh?
So that I don't forget.
What were we talking about?
Full range of motion.
Full range of motion. We've already talked about for it. Safety. So yeah, using your full range of motion, right? So you anatomically, you cannot change things like how your bones are made, how your femurs sit into your hips and things like that, right? So if you cannot squat to full depth based on how your hips moving, going further than that, like you said, it's a spectrum, could increase the risk for injury later down the line. But if you're a powerlifter and you've got to hit a set amount of rules, you've got to weigh up the priorities and stuff like that. But then training for hypertrophy, use the range of motion that's available to you.
And don't use that as an excuse not to use the range of motion. Don't be like, oh, but I can only hit this far because realistically, because my hips, but actually it's because the fact that you don't want to use 50 kilos
for most people.
So I can't squat to depth because my hips don't allow it, and also my ego doesn't allow it. My ego won't let me. That's the main reason. It's not the hips. A lot of times it's like a skill as well, and control things. You need to be taught how to use range of motion.
Oh yeah, control. Actually focusing on what you're doing.
Yeah. And also, if you don't have good technique and stuff, learn how to do it properly will help with that range of motion thing.
Take the time.
It's just not like being like, oh, but I don't have the range of motion. Doesn't mean you can't work at that.
It's all about having that long-term goal. So you might not be able to do it now. You might not be able to squat well. Again, we're just using that as an example. Squat well now with good full range of motion. But if you take the time to learn how to do it properly, then down the line you will.
Yeah, but I mean,
you'll get better results from it.
That was exactly what I was writing down. Is the fact that we're talking about safety. Make sure you use the full range of motion for your goal, but then if you're using bad technique to get that range of motion because the external goal is get this to this, then it becomes unsafe and not your goal. So you'll have like people that say, this is funny actually, like Eric Helms pointed this out in a podcast recently, and it was quite funny, the fact that if you get someone that's like adamant that you have to hit depth in a squat, but you hitting depth and hitting parallel makes your lower back round, then that same person's like, yeah, but you can't have your lower back rounding. It's like, but you've got to hit depth, but you can't round your lower back, and it's like this.
So many things,
you just got to use your range that you have. Before we move on, we're going to have a little pause now, and we'll come back for part two later on, because we've got more stuff to do.